What's going on, everyone? So, the Los Angeles Lakers have a full roster, but there's still a lot of talks about the Lakers landing various players, right? They're still in on DeAnthony Melton. They're still in on Al Horford. Al Horford seems to be kind of, weighing his options, whether it's the Warriors, the Lakers, or maybe even just retirement, because he is getting up there in age. He might just want to call it quits. But DeAnthony Melton would be fantastic. And then also there's talks about the seven-team sign and trade that the Lakers could end up landing Cam Whitmore, which that would be fantastic, right? Lakers and trade talks for, Andrew Wiggins, and, there's reports for all kinds of various things. But I wanted to kind of go over the Lakers' options, kind of weigh the various options, and how can the Lakers kind of continue to upgrade the roster? Because on the surface, it's like, hey, they have a full 15-man roster. Now, technically, they have 14 because they haven't actually signed, at least at the time of recording this video, haven't signed Adou Thiero, but he's expected to sign. That's why, you'll see a lot of people that are like, oh, hey, the Lakers have a full roster. But Bobby Marks ended up breaking down kind of everything where the Lakers stand currently. So kind of wanted to go over that and then talk about various trades and whatnot that's kind of going around in the league and how the Lakers kind of get to kind of better filling out the roster, because the Lakers do have several needs. Obviously, DeAndre Ayton was a huge pickup, arguably the best center, if not clearly the best center that the Lakers could have gotten even via trade. The upside and potential with him, he kind of needs to prove himself. So I think that this is a real good opportunity for him. He's going to be playing alongside Luka Doncic and LeBron James and even Austin Reeves, who are going to make him look very good, right? As long as he buys in, as long as he plays his role, as long as he plays his part. But yes, the Lakers signed Jackson Hayes. You could argue him as a backup center. I don't absolutely hate him as a backup center. I look at him more as that third center, right? Where, on any given night, he is your backup center. Even on some nights, he might even start for you. But kind of in that 10 to 15 minute range where he's just kind of the high flyer energy guy injecting himself. I'd like to kind of get, an Al Horford that has that more experience, kind of gives you the floor spacer. Supposedly, based on reports, the Lakers are also like the idea of Maxi Kleber kind of being a floor spacing big. He's recovering nicely, and he's expected to kind of be ready to go. I kind of think that's kind of more, just conversation to put out there. So that way, hey, look, we don't need to make trades. We just signed Jackson Hayes, right? We just signed, or we still have Maxi Kleber, but we're good. Right? I really think that that's kind of what the Lakers are putting out there, because you got to keep in mind, the Lakers are in conversations for guys like Nick Richards and so on and so forth. And teams want, hey, you need a backup. Well, it's no, now we don't. Now we have Jackson Hayes, who is really good for us right down the stretch. And we have, Maxi Kleber. But to get into kind of Bobby Marks and his breakdown. So, again, this per Bobby Marks. Lakers offseason, 12 guaranteed contracts, 2 non-guaranteed. That is Shake Milton as well as Jordan Goodwin. Shake Milton, I'm fine waiving, clearing. And we'll talk about waiving guys. Jordan Goodwin, I would like to keep if you can. I don't think it's something where it's we have to keep Jordan Goodwin. I really like him as, kind of an end-of-the-bench guy, hard-nosed, kind of pit bull, can get after it defensively. I think he could have a real rotation, be a real rotation player over the course of an 82-game season. Come playoff time, he's probably not going to see the court much, assuming the Lakers actually round out the roster the way that they're supposed to. But the Lakers are currently $3.3 million below the first apron's hard cap. Remember, Lakers are hard cap. They have to stay under the first apron. But they can sign their second-round pick, Adou Thiero, and remain under. So they'll be able to sign Thiero and still remain under just slightly, right? So that's something to keep in mind. Now, as far as the projected starting five is Luka, Austin Reeves, LeBron James, Rui Hachimura, DeAndre Ayton. I think you got to replace Rui Hachimura in that starting unit. Even if you don't pull off a trade right now, I think Jared Vanderbilt is the guy that needs to start, just because I think you need that injection of defense, right? DeAndre Ayton is going to give you a lot of the offensive output that you're getting from Rui Hachimura, right? DeAndre Ayton's a guy that go get you 15 to 18 a night, maybe even more on some nights. So I think you need that defense. You need that point of attack. You need that guy that can be versatile. At least in your starting, you have more than enough offense between Luka, LeBron, Austin Reeves, and DeAndre Ayton. Jared Vanderbilt obviously is limited defensively or offensively, but you need his defense, in my opinion. Now, obviously, hopefully the Lakers go and trade for an Andrew Wiggins or something like that, right? So, again, the reserves, Gabe Vincent, Jordan Goodwin, Bronny James, Dalton Connect, Shake Milton. Jordan Goodwin and Shake Milton are both on non-guarantees. Max Kleba, Jake LaRavia, Jared Vanderbilt, and Jackson Hayes, and then their second round pick and Duthero. Projected salary is $192.6 million. Tax threshold is $187.8 million. First apron, $195.9. So that's where they're at under the first apron. And then you have several guys that are extension eligible, but exceptions. Lakers still have the biannual exception worth $5.1 million. They have second round and vet minimums, right? So they still have those kind of things. They have a couple trade exceptions as well. So Lakers can kind of make some work. They can get some magic done if they want to. So how do they kind of round out the roster? Because let's say best case scenario, you're talking Al Horford, DeAnthony Melton, and probably just taking on a Cam Whitmore. Well, the easy answer is you could just waive, Jordan Goodwin and Shake Milton. So Shake Milton is still non-guaranteed until July 20th, where Jordan Goodwin you have until January 1st, which is why if I'm the Lakers, I would also want to keep Jordan Goodwin if you can, because, once you start moving closer to the trade deadline, and then now you can kind of feel engaged. Okay, what does this team really need? Or do we want to kind of keep a roster spot open for a buyout candidate, whatever, right? That you would have the ability to kind of just cut Jordan Goodwin and then, kind of fill in that roster spot with the guy off of the buyout market or via, whatever route that you go. If you pull off a trade and maybe you bring on an extra guy, whatever, right? So there's those options there, but you'd still need to open up one roster spot. Well, I think more likely than not, what's going to happen is the Lakers are going to pull off some type of trade. Now, maybe it's expanded into that 7-team trade. I think it'll more likely than not be like an individual trade. For example, stick with Andrew Wiggins, right? If the Lakers are to go and trade for Andrew Wiggins, well, then you're talking 2, potentially 3 players that are going to go out in that Andrew Wiggins trade, right? So that right there would open up 2 roster spots. Let's say it's Rui, Gabe Vincent, and Dalton Connect, right? Well, then boom. So you can waive Shake Milton, bring in Cam Whitmore if that ends up happening. You can sign Al Horford and sign DeAnthony Melton. Easy peasy, and now you're in good shape, right? Lakers may end up having to also make a salary dump, right? Because Lakers are going to be pushing it close to that first apron. And for example, you look at a team like the Houston Rockets. Houston, it may end up having to do a salary dump type of trade, which is why there's talks about them just kind of sending out Cam Whitmore to the Lakers, because they need to clear about $2 million off their books to get under the first apron themselves. Cam Whitmore is, making 3 and some change, so they'd have about $1.5 million kind of wiggle room, so that way they can ensure that nothing happens, or if they need to make some trade or whatever and take on, $500,000 in salary, something like that, they'd be capable of doing that without missing out on that trade. So they might have to just lose Cam Whitmore regardless, which again, Lakers could bring in, waive Shake Milton, roughly budgets out. But then again, you got to keep in mind, slightly more closer to that apron. So Lakers may end up having to do a trade. But if you think about it, right, let's say the Lakers did, Gabe Vincent, Rui Hachimura, and Dalton Connect, right? Because again, just using that as an example for Andrew Wiggins, right? Well, Gabe Vincent and Rui Hachimura alone cover Andrew Wiggins' salary, right? So you'd be good in that regard, and then you just need Dalton Connect would kind of be the guy. You'd be clearing off his contract, his salary, which should give you enough money to sign, a DeAnthony Melton and an Al Horford. So even for those that are like, oh, how would the Lakers sign guys if they just kind of swap out? It would be, you'd have to add another piece, right? Maybe you're adding, maybe you're finding another team to take on, Maxi Kleba, especially if you get an Al Horford, right? Or maybe the Lakers are pulling off multiple trades and making multiple moves, and maybe one trade is for the first round pick going out, another trade is for Andrew Wiggins, right? And you're clearing off $2 million in salary each way to kind of give you enough money to sign, DeAnthony Melton and Al Horford. So I'm not really worried about the shakeup, but this is kind of gives you a better idea of how the Lakers offseason is going to kind of continue to progress. Now, again, I'm okay with the Lakers being patient, kind of waiting for things to develop. We're still 3 months from training camp, right? So, teams right now, it's like, hey, you want this guy early, it's going to cost you. As you inch closer to training camp, those trades become more and more, kind of reasonable. Because you get teams that are like Phoenix is like, hey, I don't need 5 centers, right, to start training camp. Let me unload some guys now, try to get some assets and get some players that we can go into training camp with, so our coaching staff and everything kind of knows what he's got to work with, right? Or you get, a team like Miami who wants to get off Andrew Wiggins. Probably want to get off of him before training camp, because you don't want to have Andrew Wiggins be an integral part of your roster and your team, and then, 25 games in or whatever, you end up trading him, and you're probably not getting somebody in what the role he wants to do. Even like a Rui Hachimura, again, he's probably best at the 4 for that team. Yeah, he could kind of play the 3 for you if you wanted to, but he's not going to give you the defense that, an Andrew Wiggins gives you. So again, it kind of depends on where teams are at, what teams are thinking. But now you kind of hopefully have a better idea and understanding of kind of where the Lakers are at. They still have their first, still have Dalton Connect, still have 4 pick swaps, right? So they're good, right? They're in a place to where they can make some moves, get some things done, and we'll kind of see how it all plays out. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me out. So we enjoy these types of videos. Truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.